Hey, Mohammed. Good morning for me and good evening to you, your time.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on today. I know we've had a couple interactions, met at SQL Bits initially, and uh, I think you've been in been in the role about how long now in your current position with Microsoft?
2 years.
Okay,
I've moved
yeah,
around, but 2 years as a GPM for Power BI.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been a good journey. It's been a lot of fun. Power BI has been growing like crazy. So
Oh, yeah,
it's
for
been
sure.
pretty awesome.
And the for people tuning in, Muhammad Ali here is he's the global program manager for Power BI Desktop, and been in charge of that for a few years. Been with Microsoft for a bit, quite a bit longer than that. But we initially met at SQLBits a little bit earlier this year when I was presenting there, and you also had a topic as well on some of the new integrations for Power BI, which I think you actually showed me for the first time the PowerPoint one, which was
Yeah.
like that was one of those that it did exist like at some point a long time ago, didn't it? Wasn't there like way back in the day like a Power View or some other type of like something kind of like that?
There was a there was a plugin before, but it wasn't for Power BI. And then there was a
Okay.
third-party tool someone made that
Mm,
uses the embedded APIs. But that was the first time we, as Microsoft, did something native
gotcha.
um,
Yeah,
and made
yeah.
it
Because I
easy
remember
to
things
integrate.
similar to that, but nothing quite as fluidly integrated. I would say, and then obviously like for first party supported. But yeah, like from there we got to chatting, and like I'd love to have you on. In general, the some of my I think favorite ones as far as audience interactions are these, just because usually whenever I get someone from part of the community, but on the Microsoft half of the spectrum, there's usually a lot of good questions because people know that there's a lot of knowledge that the people have for the Microsoft culture as well. I think right now we actually have it's ticking up, but we have about 40 people in the audience, so it's probably be a good healthy set of
Awesome.
interactions and conversations that we'll have today. But besides my 2 cents and kind of a little backstory between us, do you want to give any other introduction about yourself before we just kind of get started on the
Yeah.
topic?
So yeah, my name is Mohammad Ali. I've been in Microsoft for 11 years now. I started as a consultant. I worked as a data scientist for a bit as an engineer as well, and then I moved into PM about 6, 7 years ago, and I joined the Power BI team. Then at the time we built solutions, so I moved around a bit, and then I worked on data flows, Q&A, insights, and I then owned the exploration surface area and then became the creator and exploration surface area, which effectively means the Power BI desktop and anything to do with reports or apps. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of been my like journey. And yeah, the Power BI team has been awesome to me. We have a lot of fun there, despite it being quite challenging. We have to release every month, and
Yep.
there's a lot of things that go into those releases that I wish you guys get to see, but it's been pretty awesome ride so far.
How big is the team that's specifically for the desktop app?
Less than 100. I would say around maybe 60, 70 people, I would say. So we do a lot for the small amount of engineers that we have for just the desktop product. Um, but yeah, that's like actually it kind of helps as well sometimes just having less span of control, having more people can sometimes add more bureaucracies in place. So we do a lot for very little. If you compare that to other vendors or other BI players, we are quite
Yep.
small in terms of engineering size. But I think it helps us. We iterate and we are able to ship a lot faster due to the smaller nature of the teams.
Yep. Well, and like and you said it's the monthly cycles and I as far as the having the healthy competition certainly within the BI space, I think allows for quick iterations like this. So, I get to open a Christmas present every month when I get to play around with the new features, and then obviously the public gets to see that like whatever the preview build that the MVP has got to review the month after that. But there's I'd say at least every month, every other month, somewhere between there, there's usually at least one like okay, this is worth me getting the coffee and like spending a couple of hours, maybe providing some feedback, but otherwise just playing around with X new feature. The last one was field parameters, which was one of those like oh my god, it is. I don't know how long it's going to be in preview, but I do know that it is going to short circuit the effort for so many things. And like measure switching is cool. It's not too hard to do. You can still do it with a disconnected table and that, but the big one really is switching between actual physical fields in your
Yeah.
dimensions across your axes. Like that's one of those ones that the modeling required before with that, where you had to append like this Franken table together that had all the attributes and multiple inactive relationships. Like the effort for that was very painful, and this is now just like you snap your fingers and it's there. So I'm very happy as a developer that because the end user either way would get a similar experience, but the amount of time saved for building that is exponential. So I'm very happy that that now exists.
Yeah, I remember that was the thing I demoed at SQL Bits. We had a fresh build, and it took a while. There's a lot of effort that went into that feature. I think I spent a year in development just to get that out.
Yep.
The other workaround people use is bookmarks. The gift that keeps on giving is bookmarks, where you could just create a bookmark and then just switch between 3 different visuals.
Yep.
Didn't scale very well, but that's how people did it as well. But yeah.
It's probably my most common
And
use of
to share
bookmarks
some,
is the visibility toggle, essentially, and like in
yeah.
switching between different charts and everything else like that. So yeah.
But yeah, no, I will cover some of that topics actually today.
Excellent.
In this hour, we had a brainstorm a couple of days ago just about that topic, about where are we going with bookmarks, or what is bookmarks actually meant to be. And so I'll happily cover that as well. But yeah, I can go straight into it if that helps.
Sure.
Today I'm
Yeah, wherever
presenting
you want to
on
start.
the Power BI. And as part of that, I just wanted to kind of just share with the community and the viewers here where we're going with the Power BI, with the whole product, and what is our mission statement, and just share like the spectrums that we have to deal with, or specifically my team as well. And so it should be very clear to you all by now that the Power BI mission statement, and we've been on the top of Gartner for like, I think we've been leading for like in the leaders quadrant for like 11 years. It's specifically at the top right for like 4 or 5 years now, in the latest 2022 Gartner report. But our mission statement has always been the same, and that is to really push and make every individual make data-driven decisions. That is our core mission statement. And so I use the word every individual, not lightly here, to mean that we really want everyone to be able to make data-driven decisions. And so we're not going to stop just where we are right now by enabling BI workloads, but we really want to go and capture everyone. And we believe everyone should be using data to make decisions. And so if you go down one level from where that mission statement takes us and where we want to go, we really want to, like, if you look at who else has that motivation to target everyone, Microsoft is very unique in this position that we have a product in the market that is designed to do that, which I would say is Office. And so our strategy has really been, in the last year, we really pivoted hard on how do we make it Power BI more accessible for new users? How do we really make it accessible for any new Office user? And how do we make Power BI just as synonymous as all the Office products? How do we make when you say I have a document, I have an Excel document, I have a PowerPoint document, how do we get people to start saying, I have a Power BI document that I want to share with you? And as a consequence of that strategy change, I would say maybe a year ago, we kind of invested in like 3 key areas of the product that I think is going to drastically change where Power BI Desktop goes. And I'll cover them 3, and then I am sure you're going to have lots of questions about what it means. Yeah. But I'll cover the 3 very quickly now, and then I'll stop for questions if there are questions for that. So the first one is today desktop is not like Office in the fact that desktop is really designed for the creator. What we call as the creator are people who are creating reports. It's not really a place. And then if you go look at Office products today, Office products are both consumption and creation. I can consume Word documents, and I'm not the one creating that Word document or editing that Word document. And Office has been super successful here. And so we thought long and hard, and like we had a stance maybe 5 years ago to say desktop is a place to create, just like Tableau has Tableau Desktop, and the service is a place to consume. And in this year, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of features which are going to start challenging that norm and moving to the Office model, where in desktop you will be able to consume, Power BI reports, whether they're hosted in the service or in OneDrive. And you'll be able to create documents or Power BI documents or Power BI PBX files, as you guys may call them, and be able to create them as well in desktop and or save them in OneDrive as well. And so that's really switching up where we're going from the product perspective.
So kind of like, I mean, yeah, because in Office it has all of those drop downs and other options to like open from any location type of a thing. Just like here's where your content is. You want to open that. So it's almost like having a Power BI service light kind of built into the desktop, where it's like you can open to create historically, but now it gives you little prompts to be able to just go reach out just to pull in and have like a reader mode, essentially, you know, non-edit mode, where you can just do a consumption of a report in that application.
Yeah, like if you open up an Office application today, the first screen you see is like, hey, there's new document at the top left-hand corner, and then you see a list of other documents that you may want to access, and it uses a recommendation system built on Graph. And Power BI has that already. It's called Power BI Home. Like if you go into the home website for Power BI, you already had that. And our job is to bring that into desktop, so that whether you're using the desktop, whether you're using the service, you should not need to care which client you're using. It's a client in either place. And we really want to help users get there. And so that's where it's heading towards. The flip side of that is Mac users. Like, what are we doing for Mac users? And the flip side of that is we want desktop parity in the service or in PowerBI.com. And what that means is we want you to be able to do everything you can do inside desktop today, completely in the service, without no sacrifices. And we're working, and hopefully this calendar year, we will have released our first version of allowing you to edit data sets in the service, which is something you can't do today. So you can't go and create a new measure. You can't change the relationship. You can't add a new calculator column. There's no DAX capabilities inside the service. And so we are working on that right now. And that's like the counter pivot of that strategy is and just like Office doesn't care if you use a browser to create a new document, if you use it in OneDrive or SharePoint or the client application, you can create or consume anywhere. That's part of our, like, I use that, that's why I call my team the consumption team in some sense, and the creation team as well. Is we want people to be able to create and consume reports from wherever real estate that they can.
Well, and I'll say like to that as well, like the idea of the feature parity between, you know, like development and desktop and the service. It will be great to be able to have that, and I'll say at least for like pro developers to have that as a backup option. Like I've always kind of mentioned you know, if you're traveling and, you know, in theory you leave your laptop at home because you don't think you'll need it, but if you end up somewhere where you have to hop on some other computer and do some editing, well, it'll be nice if you can at least do that as a backup in the service. But then the one thing that I think will always drive people probably back to desktop, and same with Excel, is, you know, add-ons, plugins, you know, external tools for Power BI. But it will be nice to be able to do some of those light edits, and then ideally, you know, easily just have that file, you know, be able to get pushed back to wherever it was saved for, you know, version control reasons and all that. But I think that will definitely be a great move forward with a lot of those additional options in the future.
And what you said is perfectly spot on. Like, I'm expecting a lot of miniature, small edits, clarification points, or like adding additional things, tweaks, as we call them, quickly into the service, but still using the desktop as a main tool. But once we have parity, the other benefits that having parity gives us is a future thing, which I'll come on to now, is like pro tooling. And so the third pivot, which is something I mentioned, is we want to really make ourselves accessible for new users. And like I've had several meetings with the MVPs around this and our customers, that what does that actually mean? And so like in Office, one of the things I really like about Office is, like, if I'm creating something new, like a chart in Excel, editing the chart in Excel, formatting it the way I want it to, I can just click on the axes and then just change the color. I can click on the title and it can just change the text. In Power BI, everything is driven out of the format pane, which is, I would say, has been our strategy for a while, and we're now moving away from that. And so you'll start seeing an improved get data experience coming into Power BI soon. You'll start seeing an improved way to format visuals using like the same similar system like Office, and a new way to create visuals as well, to help you create the right visual, and changing the way the defaults look, changing the way we use logic to help you create the correct visual. We don't do any of that smart stuff today, which we should be, and pushing the best practices that we can. And so we have several people in my team working on that right now. And so that's really making it accessible for everyone to use. Like, I don't want everyone have to figure out, like, data literacy is a big problem, and it's something that
Yeah.
my team constantly worries about. And we want to help users get there, not make it more of a burdensome, or like, I don't want Power BI to seem so alien for people that they get scared even just trying to attempt to use it, if that makes sense.
And to kind of two of those things, you mentioned data literacy, and I know Office in general is Clippy hasn't made his way back yet, but there has been like the kind of there's been the helper things that have like the PowerPoint has those like, hey, based off of what's here, here's some auto arranged templates that you can like help to just auto design your stuff, and it sounds like there's also goals to push towards Power BI as well to if you give an artist a blank canvas and a palette of paints and ask them to paint something, they'll have zero idea what to do if they have no experience painting. But if you give them, a paint by numbers, it becomes easier. So it's kind of, I would say, similar with software. You want to give them guide rails to help, get them to the finish line with as few steps as possible, to provide insights from their data. Like, I know what I've seen, but I also want to make sure, like, what can you share of like some ideas that are going forward for Power BI to like help with that? That's able to be discussed.
So there's a couple of things that we're working on. So one, which we just started on, is assisted get data experience. Help people get data into Power BI. A lot of people don't know how to even just bring in data into Power BI from a new user perspective, right? The second one is assisted report creation. And this is something that we haven't shared, I don't think, with anyone yet, is ability to help people provide, I would say it's not guardrails, but it's likely to help assist first-time users just know how to put a vision on the canvas, how to have a good layout for the visuals, and really help them get there. And the final one, which you guys have probably seen, and I think Jay has talked about this, is help them assisted calculations. Like, how do we help people create calculations just like they would in Excel? And those are the three key areas that we're making huge investments in right now. And we believe they will go a very long way to help users. Like, that's where our new users, when we went to our research studies, struggle with the most, spend the most time on trying to figure out. And it all comes down to like data literacy, like data understanding of these users is not high. And how do we assist them in helping them get there without either giving them a cliff at the end, which is like, oh, now you got to learn the full Power BI. And so a lot of these experiences I call assisted, like for pro users, they can opt out of it and get out of it. However, the primary default will be like, hey, we're going to try to help you get through this experience. And I think it'll have a lot of value for people who are pro users, who are like trying to like, an example would be like, hey, you created a sales chart. Well, do you want to see the sales by category breakdown as well? And just giving people those choices, which they probably wouldn't know how to do, and just helping them get to that final state, I think is going to be super valuable for us to really nail and get right. And so that's like the three pivots on like how we are going to be moving our strategy going forward. And like I would say our Uber level strategy are those three things. I will come to pro tooling in a moment, but is there any questions that so far?
I have quite a few questions that I can funnel to us here in a minute. I just wanted to also comment on the like you kind of mentioned there's and I've used these charts in a lot of my trainings. There's that little kind of like line that goes up, and you ideally want it as flat as possible before it spikes to the skill level on the number of things that you can learn in a tool that are easy. Power Query has always been one of my favorite things to trumpet, and like if we're going to do a 2 to 3 day training on Power BI, for the most part, we only need a couple of hours in Power Query. Once you understand the basic interface, the rest of it is you click a button, you see what it does. Worst case, if it doesn't work, you delete it and you try something else. It's very easy to learn versus like writing DAX and modeling and all the other stuff that has complexities. And you want to like, minimize that like experience needed to be able to do as many advanced things as possible with the tool without requiring, like 6 to 12 months of expertise in it or requiring, the architects or the experts. So I definitely think with any of this, like low to no code is the buzzword that's in the industry now. That's the direction that everything is trying to head, and it will allow a lot people to not fall off that cliff as you've described.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Like for us, like we also want to like help reduce the amount of training required to use a product, and so like there are a lot of SaaS players in this place and new startups in this place, I should say, that are really trying to help people get it easy. And I think Power BI is in a unique position that we have a lot of users using our product today, and we
Hmm.
have a lot of learnings. And so I feel like we have all the right ingredients now. Just making it more accessible and more easier to use is really our focus. Um,
Perfect. Let
did
me
you want to post a
yeah.
show the question?
Yep.
Or
So what I'll do is I'll go through some of the questions that I have queued up. So Sandeep had one. Mo, can you talk about why so many of advancements have been made on data modeling, the Power Query side of things compared to the data visualizations, and when could we maybe expect more natively available visuals? And before you answer that, I will pair that with just one other question and comment
sure.
that Mudasir had as well, where there are a lot of custom visuals in the marketplace, and he's also kind of curious, like when will they be supported in addition of like either more robust or more types of native visuals in Power BI.
Okay, I'll happy to take that. I didn't mention the like our core strategy is we are a BI product, right? And we've really got to nail our visualization strategy. I'm not sure if I shared this tweet out or if I haven't posted this. I think I did. I posted about 2 weeks ago. I think I posted on Twitter saying we've just 2 times the team size of just working on visuals, and so it is true that we have focused a lot more on just getting our data modeling and other Power Query capabilities out right. At the end of the day, we need to focus on the visualization, and you guys have seen that and given us that feedback. We've just started on a journey and a couple of fronts on our visualization piece. I'll share this. It's quite still early, which is why we haven't shared it formally. But I'll just share it briefly on like the meetings that we just had that this came off. We are going to be adding, and I would say my team had 2 choices. Either we add more visuals like heat maps and other statistical visuals like box plots and violin plots, or we go ahead and fix some of the just the basic visuals just have so many missing features or not complete. Conditional formatting is still not complete in some places. And so my team and me had to make a hard choice. Like we only had X resources to go and invest. We decided to actually focus on completing the existing visuals so that you don't hit cliffs on them and then have to result in custom visuals just to do a bar chart that gives you what you want. Or a card visuals, like so you have to go and create separate card visuals. Really think about how we allow you to create a plate of visuals of measures, right? Like kind of like a dashboard kind of view. And so my team just started. We have a backlog that we will share soon. We just like increased or doubled the size of the engineering team on visualizations. We had to make a call on whether we add more visuals or fix the existing visuals. And so we're going to fix the existing visuals based on a lot of the feedback that you guys have already shared. I'll even add that we are also fixing the defaults. Like a lot of the defaults today make it so that you end up spending more time formatting the actual visual and getting it in the right shape that it should have been. Like some of them violate best practices. When you drag in a date column, there should be a limited number of choices that you should see, but we just create like the worst visualization possible. Or when you drag in dimensions or multiple dimensions hierarchies, we don't create the best visualization for you around a stacked bar chart. And so in my team, you'll see more from Rian, who's been really focused in that area, and Miguel, who's been like the connoisseur of writing the best visualization of reports. He creates really
Miguel Myers, right? Yeah.
He's part of
he's the person I look to as my like the guru when it comes to like what could I be inspired by. He is the guy every time I read his stuff or see what he does because it's black magic for some of his designs.
And he's working with the team right now on figuring out how we ship some of those out of the box. So he's trying to reduce the time so that everyone can be like Miguel. I don't think everyone will be like Miguel, but like his aim is to get there, and he's been working hard with the team. And so we have, like I would say, it was just so recent that we've done it, which is why you guys haven't seen any change yet. But you'll start seeing every month like more capabilities added in just our core visuals, and adding to the visuals and like heat map you guys mentioned is something we will do once we plug in all the gaps and get into a good state there. And so I do see us adding more core visuals like heat maps in the future. I just don't see us doing that right this moment because of all the feedback that you guys have shared. We want to just get in a good clean state for those. And so that's where we're heading.
Well, just one little comment to the heat map is like it was actually one of my earliest popular videos. Is the one thing that is not available is that the little gradient bar that would normally come with a visual as a legend, but otherwise like the matrix table if you do conditional formatting on the font and the background color, makes a heat map that gives 90% of what you need. Like, and that's my quick and dirty way to make one, because Microsoft technically has a heat map custom visual that I wouldn't say it's not particularly the best custom visual out there.
Yeah.
It's not very good. But the native one does,
I
yeah,
understand. Yeah.
does do a pretty good job. Outside of that one caveat that you don't get the gradient legend. But other than that, like there are those fun little like ways to customize native visuals to make new and creative things.
Yeah, we have a huge backlog of just like gradient legend is in there in that backlog, loads of them, and we're just now just like using the investment just to ring fence and just focus on those. In the past, we have obviously like to really focus on like composite models is a big investment area. Report parameters as well was a big investment area that took away resourcing from visualizations, and then now we've protected them so that they just focus on those. Basically, I would say your user voice items or the ideas I should say now is in that huge list. It will work. What we're working on. That's the backlog of the team, and we use our different channels of information, like our enterprise customers as well, to figure out which ones we prioritize. But we are working on those lists now, and so hopefully you'll see in the coming months, starting in September, I'd say you'll start seeing more releases in just visualizations, and then hopefully you'll see that we are making a huge investment in that space.
Excellent. Let's see. Pop another one up to here. So, well, one individual was asking a couple of times of dark mode for Power BI.
Dark mode is actually an interesting one. As part of the accessibility drive that my team has had, like we need to be make Power BI accessible for users, and so every Microsoft product is going through this phase now. We are, as part of that, doing a dark mode is actually I would say is a goal of some of the accessibility features that we're doing. We are working on some infrastructure right now, which is what our product was not designed with dark mode in mind, and so you have to go on it out. But we have got people looking at adding the infrastructure needed to support a dark mode. I can't commit to when that will be ready, but we are going to hopefully have by the end of the calendar year the infrastructure ready, and maybe next year, if we decide to prioritize it, you will soon see a dark mode. But we will have a lot of the infrastructure done this year. So I'm not going to say a timeline specifically and say no, it's off the table. Realistically, it'll just come down to when we have all the teams, every team needs to support it as well. And so it's not just my team. And so just trying to get every team to have a time to focus on it has been hard, especially with where we're trying to really focus on governance at the moment in Power BI, really trying to help admins get more information. And so we kind of just prioritize those areas first before we start doing dark mode. And it's just a trade-off that we make.
I agreed. It's with the limited time and resources, where's the priorities lie? And there's the need to have versus nice to have that I'm sure you guys have to review on a weekly and monthly basis for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm positive for dark mode in the future. I'm a key advocate for dark mode. My team is as well. So, sorry.
I was just I'm gonna Didier. So the guy who made Power BI side tools has a great question. Desktop hardening seems to be a topic regularly raised in secret conversations within the Power BI team. However, he hasn't seen any improvement for a long time. Might there be any announcement?
So I will not use this as an official announcement. We are working on desktop hardening. We're doing several features there. But when you guys say desktop hardening, you want basically all of it to be hardened, and that is going to take us time. But we are working. So I think Christian Wade did a session maybe a couple of months ago where he talked about it. We have active engineers working on it, and the reason why we need to do it. One of the things that we want to really enable for you guys is a pro developer story. I want you to be able to open up the PBX file and actually understand it and not have to unzip it every time to check it into source control so you can manage it. So we're really working on the complete CI/CD story for how you want to see a Power BI PBX file represented in Git. And as a consequence of that, if you can just change anything in Git, everything has to be hardened, as in you can just manually add properties and so forth. And so we're working on a backlog of those items. And so that will hopefully pave the way for a lot of features. we had to do some of the hardening anyway for the third-party tools, like the third-party tools editing things. Desktop had to go through some hardening, so we are working on it. You guys are probably looking for the full end, or like when will it be completely hardened? And I don't have an overview of when that will be, the exact time. But we are actually, like, if you looked at it last year, we weren't funding it. This year, there's an engineer or a group of engineers actually actively working on it. And I would say also we're working on like the pro developer story as well. Like, we want for you to be able to check in your Power BI files into source control and then work with this. And so like today, the data, or the TIMSL as people call it, the actual JSON file that you get for the model is now checkable in, but like you also want it for reports. And so we are going to have to do a bunch of work there. Well, we are working on that right now. Realistically, I think it will release next year. But like you'll start seeing more and more hardening done. And I believe Christian will have a talk on it in the coming months to go through it in some detail of what we've done. Because you guys have rightly called us out on it, right? Like we said it's important, but we haven't actually funded it. We are now funding it. And so we've been quiet because we want to actually show you something rather than just saying we're going to do it. And so that's where we are right now.
And just to confirm, that's Christian Wade, yeah? Okay, yeah. I would definitely be looking forward to that one. But even to your thing related to version control, a few others, I do appreciate some of the new tools like Matthias over from Europe who does the Power BI tools that does make it a bit easier to back up to both either GitHub or Azure DevOps has been really useful. For those watching, like I have a couple of streams, if you check out my live stream history, where he walks through and actually has a few tutorials that shows you how to do that. So there are options available there, but the further integrations for more of those pro tools, especially for either DevOps or any kind of automated backup and version control of the both the files or just the underlying metadata behind all of that will be nice to see going forward, certainly, just because it will require less installs and less knowledge of knowing what's out there in the larger ecosystem, because it'll just be built in as part of a native Power BI feature.
The aim for us will be like to have actually like inside desktop the ability to save a folder, your Power BI file, which will then include the dataset file, the static resources used in the report definition, and then by consequence, like if you check that in and you then merge conflicts, we need to be able to handle those and then be hardened against those. And so there's a lot of stuff there. Around pro tooling, I might as well just talk about this, preempt the question if it comes up. Sure. We are also working on like, for me, the vision for us is like, I'm grateful that we have third-party tools that fill in the gaps, but I'm embarrassed that Power BI Desktop still doesn't have native support for some things that I think just needs to be done. And I'll give you some examples that is on top of my mind at the moment. Calculation groups, perspectives, having native UI support to create them inside desktop is something we will do and we will work on. I will probably start them in the coming months, I hope. But it's top of mind for me to really get that. And basically, like, look, we're always going to have third parties that will be more superior than us in things that we just haven't developed in. But I'm hoping that a lot of I would call them basic scenarios now, like doing calculation groups really saves time for the report author. Doing perspective saves time. Dynamic format strings is in that bucket as well. And I'm sure there's a couple others I'm probably missing off the top of my head. But really supporting them is going to be super key for us. And also adding just more measures and bringing the parity between DAX and Excel down is something we're also working on. So adding more functions you'll see Jeffrey talk about the new functions we're adding, new time intelligence functions coming to help really create some of those measures easier for you guys. This is something we're working on right now.
And I think especially with calculation groups, I think the drive for those will definitely start to go up a little bit as people don't need Tabulator is one of the best things that's ever came out for Power BI for sure. Just as far as a pro developer tool, but I would guess it. And you probably have the data on this. Is it like anything that requires an additional tool to add probably has a drop off rate of people who are implementing it just because it's a lot harder and it just can't be added natively. So I'm sure that the adoption for that will increase when you can make one more easily, or at least a basic one, just directly inside of desktop.
No, exactly. Like it's not just a drop off. Like people's organizations don't let them install other tools, and
Yeah.
it turns into a nightmare to just install them. We really want to provide at least most of the you said the basic functionality. I'll say the this functionality. We want to really provide there, and so that's kind of my team's aim to do that and support that.
Excellent. I do have a couple of other things. I will actually just mention get a little feedback if you want to turn down the speaker slightly, and then I'll bring up some of the other questions.
Sure.
Yeah, let's see. So Gopa has a couple of great questions. It's kind of a three-parter, so I'll throw each one of these up. So essentially, like within bookmarks, and I'll paraphrase this. So it's somewhat difficult when you're creating a bookmark that is using selected visuals, and then through this having to come at a later stage and be able to make changes for it, and you can't really know what that bookmark is attached to. So reading through all of this, it's like, editing it at a later point. There's no way to know what was associated with that bookmark, what visuals were there or not. The only way to find out is you click it and you just look at the page and you try to see what's happening. And I'll kind of mirror this a bit. Is like bookmarks are one of my favorite features in Power BI for functionality. From a developer's perspective, they are painful, and I actually recommend as a best practice today, I tell people to take a screenshot of the selection pane, or just because it's a quick and easy note, and then save that in OneDrive or something of what visuals you had selected, because otherwise you'll have no way of knowing that in the future. So is there maybe any updates that might make visibility on the configuration settings or the capture settings in bookmarks going forward?
So I'll give you the transparent answer that we're not making direct investments in bookmarks right now. We had a brainstorm, like there's a history on what the bookmark feature was meant to be used for and what you guys actually use it for. Like the bookmark feature was designed to do storytelling, and so it's not meant to be designed to add additional functionality into your report. Now, because we made it open, people used it to fulfill their needs, and I think we had a meeting about like what is bookmarks used for and what is other things. Realistically, like in this scenario, you want to be able to have a button or some action, I should say, that basically allows you to see this visual dot hidden equals true. You want to be able to easily add those conditions in to your report, and then you can click on the button to see which visuals is affected, rather than to dig through the many visuals. And so we talked about this, and we talked about report interaction in general. This comes under a big umbrella of report interaction. Bookmarks is a way people accomplish something today. So we have, I would say, aspirations. We haven't got it in any plan at the moment. I don't have an engineering looking at it to actually fix, I would say, return bookmarks to what it was meant to be used for, and then address the things people use bookmarks for, and actually make dedicated features to actually help them, so that you don't fall into this trap of, I'm using bookmarks to see the final state and then the next final state, and I wanted to see what is toggled on and off, is not the goal of bookmarks. However, there is a feature that Power Apps has, which is I want to be able to see what is hidden and what isn't, and I want to be able to easily see that in a nice window. And then you can just show that through UI as well, like, hey, these are the visuals that are affected and not, and so forth. So we have aspirations to fix it. We just came out of the brainstorm a week ago on it, of that we want to go and fix it. The reality is to fix it, I would need several other teams to come forward with me to propose it. And so as we just did the brainstorm, it's going to probably take us a couple of months just to even like get those conversations started with all the teams, because it affects more than just my team. But we did look at it, and I understand the pain, but I don't have a remedial for you right now, but we are looking into it.
No, and I think you have a good point. It's like the bookmarks, because they were so open on their features, they've been used for a lot of stuff. It's essentially like most of the visibility, it's for pop-ups. You basically want to either switch a visual, or you want to have a little pop-out pane or a like pop-up tooltip, and all of that, which rather than necessarily making bookmarks robust, you might instead, like, there's considerations for just having a feature that is dedicated specifically to how do I interact and control easily just that type of visibility separately. You already did that with the page navigation. Bookmarks used to be used to create buttons that toggle between pages. Now you have a dedicated action specifically to do that. So I would imagine maybe in the future there's some additional configurations for buttons that just syncs it with object visibility just by itself, so it makes that more fluid.
or each visual has a visibility state that can be controlled by a measure, and then the measure calculates
Oh,
what happened, or a parameter,
yeah.
and
I,
something
I
like
hope
that.
for
We
that.
talked about that. That's the alternative. The only downside is like if you want three buttons to control the state of one visual, controlling that logic is quite difficult. But like realistically, that would be the feature I would probably want to go and do. And then I feel like then people will stop abusing bookmarks and then go and use the correct feature. But that's something that we just talked about. I don't have any proposal, but my team is very passionate about the report interaction behavior.
Exactly. I have a couple of other good ones. I'm gonna get rid of a few, and then like this one I actually really liked. The more of a might actually be an easy UI fix. I don't know, but Adam had a mention, and I've actually experienced this as well. When the view as is activated and you're trying to configure RLS, apparently it can cover up part of the top canvas, which can actually interfere with testing and interactions because it's an overlay. So it doesn't, rather than say pushing the canvas down and just shrinking the
That's
thing,
just a bug.
it doesn't overlap. Yeah.
I think that's just a bug. If you can send me either a note just with the UI picture, I can get that fixed.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, there you go. Excellent. So there, I had a
I
feeling like
assume this
that
is a
might just
bug.
be a quick and easy fix. So sweet.
Yeah, that sounds like a bug, but thank you, Adam, for sharing.
Perfect. But yeah, I'm trying to look through any other good. Oh yeah, so I'm not positive of this feature, but it said it was announced earlier this year. So Hale, if I'm pronouncing that right, any idea when the dynamic slash RLS page navigator will be released? Was it? He says it was announced about a year ago.
So I think it was announced at a conference. I thought I tweeted about this as well, saying that this won't be coming because we actually hit issues with this. So I want to talk about there's a feature here that people keep talking about, and we have to actually
Mm,
change the reaction of this feature, which is you want people to really control pages and control who sees what pages. And the consequence
yes.
of that is that they thought it was a security feature. But the real issue is like anyone, you can make an API call to the actual model, but you still have access to the model. Like it's not RLS. Like RLS and OLS are the ways to secure your model. They are done on the model so that any query through any third-party tool can still is blocked.
Yep.
Now, if you want to control page visibility, which I think is what you're asking for, which is why
Mm,
I want to stay away from it. So we said we won't do dynamic. There's no way to implement RLS on the page. So whatever you put on that page can't be controlled, and other pages can't be controlled what is on it. We're not going to go and assess the page and then say this user should not be able to see these things from there, and then concatenate the OLS rules from it. So that feature that you're mentioning was cut because we couldn't do it, or it didn't fulfill the security issues that people were raising. Now, doing page visibility is something I just talked about. Visual visibility, page visibility, and visual visibility will be done simultaneously, or will be part of the same
mm.
scope. But we haven't started working on that yet. So, if you're waiting for that feature, I'm really sorry. We removed that feature from the backlog because it couldn't be achieved from what you guys were asking. I thought we had highlighted that, but if there's some place where it still says we're doing that, please let me know and I'll happily correct it.
Okay.
But yeah, we removed that feature from our backlog.
Yeah, the closest I've come to that is and yeah, I'm sure you're well aware. This is uh, there is kind of that workaround where you can do the a page navigation drop down from a slicer selection to a button. You can control that drop down, but technically that page, the link is still available if somebody actually was to
Yep.
copy and paste that. So like my solution is a cross section of the two actual RLS. So even if they go to the page they're not supposed to see, it basically is just the visuals are aired out. Like there's some calculation group or DAX measure, something that just basically breaks that page if somebody magically gets the link. So at least the data isn't actually going to be exposed. And then the other half is, the actual dropdown only shows you the pages you deserve to see. So, but again, as people have mentioned, ideally you want to have less tips and tricks and hacks to work through this stuff. So there's a pseudo way to do this today, but nothing that is super easy
Yeah.
to implement. But it sounds like there's a few
Yeah.
considerations and complications that are, at least pausing this for the moment until it's part of a larger package that will come with
Yeah.
a few other things that will be worked on kind of at the same time.
Yeah. It will be page visibility. That's the feature that
Yep.
we were going to be very careful not to call it security because it's not. You're
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
We're not
yeah.
evaluating. We're just evaluating a rule to hide or show a page.
Yep.
And you're right. You can just access it, um, or call the API. Like there's nothing preventing you from doing that.
Well, yeah, 100%. Like so, not true RLS. It's more. It's it's a UI
Yeah.
filtering experience.
It sounds like it's just UI convenience.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, exactly. I do have a few other ones. I wasn't sure if there was anywhere you wanted to steer the conversation
no, no, no.
specifically.
I'm happy for
Otherwise,
the
yeah.
questions.
Okay.
I've covered the main mission. Like that. That was mainly where we're going, and I think that started this conversation down of like, hey, all these things. So happy to keep doing.
Let's see. One that it's kind of a general term, a little outside of the scope of Power BI Desktop, but is there any interesting new things coming for Power BI apps?
I assume you mean organizational apps in Power BI. So my team does own the apps
Oh,
interface today.
excellent.
So the one in the release notes is to support multiple audiences per app. So you can
Okay.
configure when you have an app, you can have like five different reports. You can control who sees which of those reports. So it's kind of related to the topic we just had, but it's actually at the
Okay.
report
Okay.
level, and you can control who sees what. And so it's called multiple audiences per app. And this is
There's
a
no, yeah.
workaround, I would
Okay.
say, or a solution. I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say it's a solution for people who said, I want to have one app that serves multiple audiences. Or I want to, people also say, I want multiple apps for a single workspace. This is part of the solution to that problem, which is you can now have one app that serves multiple people. Um, but if you actually truly want to make two apps for the same set of users, but just there's two different unique apps, you still can't do that from this feature. So one thing that we're going to be heading or looking forward to in next semester for apps is how do you bring resources from different workspaces into apps? I know there's a workaround which people use today, but how do you actually do that natively is something we're looking into. And or is there a way to actually create true multiple apps per workspace and actually support an artifact type per app? And those are the two areas that we're looking into right now. I would say they're not releasing because we're just like thinking about them. The one that's releasing is the one that's in the release notes is multiple apps, multiple audiences for a single app.
Okay. So just to paraphrase and clarify for that, then it's the ability to like you have 10 reports, and within one app, you can say that these 10 workspace members get to see these three reports, but these other 10 workspace members for that same app would get to see these like seven reports. So you can configure per audience or ideally probably a security group or something or an office group
Yeah.
in Active Directory, different exposures and would you actually be able to customize the navigation experience? So like actually having custom links as well in the app nav per each one, or is it only
So you can
specifically data
customize
sets and reports?
you
Go
can
ahead.
customize exactly what they see. So
Hmm.
you would say is this audience sees this thing on the left hand nav, and this audience will see this thing on the left hand nav, and they could see
Okay, so
completely
that's
different things.
nice. I love. Okay, so it sets
I,
individual groups, links, and reports
yeah,
and artifacts. Okay, that's awesome. That's great.
I didn't expect. I have a working version of this. I didn't expect that question to come up, but like it's going to be
Yeah.
releasing next month anyway. It was meant to
Okay.
release at the end of July, but it got delayed by a couple of weeks just for final touches. Um, and so we're going to be releasing it next month anyway. So you guys will all get to see it then.
Excellent. Uh, let's see what else we got. Didier had one other. So the looks like Microsoft's developed many excellent editors over the years. What's the reason why the M and DAX ones were so poor? Like that's actually one thing that I've missed from just to piggyback off of that from Excel is I love the little pop-up window that we had for the editor, like for DAX in the Excel Power Pivot environment, and it's definitely gotten better. But I think that you know the IntelliSense actually I've noticed has gotten a bit buggier in the last year with some of the autocompletes and other stuff, and the little error messages that have popped up.
So I can't speak to the M1. Like we will be fixing the M1 in October when we have our first
Yes.
release of like integrating it with Power Query Online inside desktop, and that will just by default I think bring over the Monaco editor that M uses. The DAX one, we are making improvements as part of like when we ship the DAX editing in the web, we'll all standardize on the same one, and then we'll be improving that
Mm,
control, and then
okay.
that will. But like I also think part of the challenges is like people either want to with DAX specifically, you can create a single line calculation. If you actually do creating multiple lines, I would say today our experience is just not optimized for that. And looking at like actually having a separate DAX window to your separate report canvas, so you can then see and edit at the same time without having like things overlap is something we're looking at of doing in the future. Um, but it's just the fact that like at the time like Microsoft has developed many excellent editors. I'd say Visual Studio Code has paved the way of we do use the Visual Studio Code editor, but it's not as like, you have to remember, like when you're working in an editor, it's very different than working inside a product.
Yep,
And
agree.
so we have to just customize it and get it to work for our needs. But you will see more improvements in the DAX one specifically. We are making improvements there. And I believe the M1 will just get fixed as a consequence of the wider integration of bringing Power Query's like diagram view into desktop. And I think by then it will also have the Monaco editor. And the Monaco editor is also called, it's just a Visual Studio Code editor. I think it was codenamed Monaco. So I keep using that term, so I apologize. But the Visual Studio Code editor will be coming in. And then the syntax, I think the syntax highlighting is in there already. I believe the IntelliSense is in there, although you said it's a bit buggy, and I've seen reports of that too. But
Yeah.
you should just get a lot better to handle that.
Another big one for, and somebody kind of brought it up, Olivia here. I'll throw it under there. Olivia, he mentioned just having like be able to have separate screens to use on multiple monitors for developers is nice with anything. Yeah. So having those pop-ups are, if or when they ever come, will be, I think, paramount to
the service will support that straight away.
Oh, perfect.
But multitasking is an item that we are going to look into. It won't be done this year, but we have gone through items of like, hey, when we come to the model view for the second or third time now, and we looked at the next set of iterations on it, one is being able to separate out the model view from the report view, even inside desktop as separate tabs or separate windows, as you call them. So yes, I'm aware of the feedback. It's just there's been a bunch of prereqs to do before we could actually get there, and we're working on those prereqs right now. So at least we're Excellent. Heading in that direction. But like the way the desktop was designed wasn't designed so it could do multi-window, and so there was a bunch of prereqs we're working on to support that.
And I'm very much looking forward to being able to do DAX editing in the service as well. I think that will be, man, yeah, especially for Mac users. Somebody made a comment about that earlier. I think that will be very beneficial for a lot of people on other OSs or just individuals that security reasons can't install Power BI Desktop.
Yeah, I have a Mac as well. So for me, I either use Parallels or I struggle like the rest of you. And so I think it's been helpful, actually. Like I've been able to share my frustration with my own team, and they understand it, that they need to make me successful, and so they need to support Mac. So yeah, that's been part of maybe that was the main reason of the drive, actually. Maybe they were trying to make me enabled. But yeah, I have a Mac as well, so I understand the pain completely.
So I have one question that I'll paraphrase a bit. Essentially, because we've talked about a lot of things that are coming out in near future, post future. If you were to like consider that in the next 2 years, and let's maybe say like top 3 to 5, like what would you say that you can share at least? What are some of the things that you're most excited about that will be coming in the next couple cycles for that, as like some primary highlights to maybe summarize?
So obviously these are stuff you take with a grain of salt because we don't know our backlog for the next 2 years. But I think full parity in the service is one that will happen in 2 years, not will happen sooner than that. I would say co-authoring is a big one. So allowing multiple editors of a Power BI file to happen simultaneously is something we will need to support, and we're working on. I also think one of the other things that we will do is, and I would say even beyond 2 years, is once we have everything, the parity in the service, there's nothing stopping us from allowing desktop to work with analysis services that's in the service. Like actually making edits, but the analysis services model is not sitting on your client machine.
Yep.
And that opens up doors for any thin client application, any mini browser version or a Mac version of Power BI client shipping in your client version and allowing you to do that. And so I would say this is a hard question to answer because like a lot of the things that I just talked about, like OneDrive integration, they're not going to, the initial version will ship this year. Getting to full parity where we want that to be is going to be the 2-year plan. Getting desktop parity in service is a 2-year plan. Getting the pro tooling in a great place is going to be a 2-year plan. Supporting multi-windows and ALM is a 2-year plan. And so I've kind of given you kind of that view, but like if I look beyond, just even beyond 2 years, which I think where you're trying to ask is like, what will we be doing? I really hope that when you open up desktop, the experience will be very much like Office. And I describe this like PowerPoint. I'm hoping we bring back the slide view into Power BI, where it looks like we're making slides. and you can see the visualizations of the reports. I really hope we move to a model where we have interaction really defined, like a power up. Like you can start defining visibility and conditions based on page loads and events, based on when things happen in the report. So you can then customize the logic that goes inside there. I really hope we'll have a persisted formula bar like Excel has. And I really want to figure out how our Excel story works here, around the fact that when someone connects to data, a lot of people probably want to work with a table first before they go and create a report. And I don't know how we're going to solve that challenge. I know we've got some ways to solve that, but realistically, I really hope that that'll be something we really look into in the next couple of months. We're going to be shipping Save to OneDrive, Share. Like if you open up desktop and you click Share, saving to OneDrive and just making OneDrive work like the Power BI service, so that you can closely organize your like I have a team SharePoint. I'll give you an example that my team has. We have a team SharePoint, but I have a separate workspace in the Power BI service, and trying to get new users or new people in my team to tell them all these different links. I want to just point them to one place, and then they can go and get them and do whatever they want. And so I think the OneDrive story is going to be super important here going forward. And along with OneDrive is going to be co-authoring. Like if two people open a report and one person's editing page 1 and page 2, that's going to be super important for us. So that's kind of where I think we want to go. I'm just trying to think where we would want to go for the Power BI service. I really think the Power BI service would be a place for pure distribution, like organizational distribution, and then doing ad hoc analysis. I really hope it gets like people saving, sharing OneDrive files with Power BI files and them saying, hey, I just did the analysis. Can you believe it? We were low compared to our last 2 years. We're not doing so well. Like do some quick analysis. The feature that I haven't talked about much, which is something we're working on as well, is exploration. Power BI today is not an exploration tool. And we are working on what I would say is moving towards having a mode. It's not replacing the report here. It's not the report view canvas. It's a mode that we will enable for you to actually explore and work with a single visual and really get to explore and like get suggestions and like trying to get answers to your questions. And so
I would say that's actually somewhat related to like just like those AI type visuals that let you do explorative analysis of your data and just, dig into it. So I think it shares some parallels with what you're talking about. It's just the ability to do like exploratory analysis, but not necessarily know where you need to start or where you're going, but you find out along the way, and the whatever the visual or the feature is allowing you to do that.
This question covers a lot of the things we're doing in exploration. It's not just the AI visuals. To be honest with you, I want someone to just be able to say, hey, you know what? I want to see sales by time that's not plotted on this canvas, but I want to kind of just do an analysis. And what people do today, and I really want to change the behavior, and this is part of the wider goal of the mission statement, is I want really people to stop exporting to Excel and going into Excel to do something that they should have been able to do in Power BI. Like, I don't want to block that feature, but like there's just things that you just can't do in Power BI. Like, oh, I just want to use this data and add a quick column onto the data and then visualize that. And I might type in the values, or I might not. And today, just to even do that thing is like requires you to leave the tool. And I really want to enable those kind of experiences.
And the closest thing we'd have to things like that is there's like InfoRiver and like Zebra BI allows for that, like essentially Excel like just instant table, add a column, add a row, click a visual button, poof, and like. But the goal with even those too is it keeps people in Power BI, so you don't have to go to Excel anymore for that. And it is nice to have, as you mentioned, and Analyze Excel is great to keep at least the data in sync, but ideally, you want people to have to leave the tool because it's an extra step. It requires a setup of an additional file and all of that. So the more you can just do everything in-house, the better.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to bring up, so you mentioned a couple times with some of the like, future of how this will be more like Office and some of the experiences. And like there are some things that I'm excited about, but I'm also like, I'm pretty sure I can't talk about, but like as far as the development experience and like how that might how that's heading in the future as far as Office, other type stuff, is there anything specifically that what's available to talk about between the two of us, or that you can maybe share on some of those whether or not it's Ribbon or the Canvas or anything else?
So look, we are making change, but the ribbon's going to go through an Office change where like we'll have a contextual ribbon, which is what we call it. And so I think I've shared that before. I aim to hopefully make it easier and bring back, I call it the PowerPoint slide view. We haven't and make Power BI have a viewing mode as well, or a presentation mode, as my Amir likes to call it. Have
Mm-hmm.
like a presentation mode inside desktop. So I have a report and I want to full screen it. So we are working on several features like those. I'm not sure what you were referring to, but like yeah, we are working on like if you look at PowerPoint and look at Excel and you look at the if you look at them mixed together is where Power BI should head. Um,
Yep.
and we really want to make it that easy. And people are very familiar with Office, and so we've seen that from our research. And so we really want Power BI to just be an inviting place. Um, so when you get into it, you'll be invited straight away to be able to create what you want. But yeah, like we're doing a bunch of changes to a lot of things that you guys have known and loved in Power BI. Like the format pane has changed, and it's going to go for another change with on object edit, so you can edit visuals inline. You can edit the format inline. You get that nice floaty ribbon as well that comes up, and so we're working on that as well. Um, and we're like looking at what the data feature the data view as well is, but I don't have any like concrete statements to say
Yep.
about that. But we are looking at like the product has been the same for the last 5 years, and so we're trying to find ways that we can now that we've learned from you guys and how you guys are using it, how do we make those things easier and those tasks easier to reach our mission statement. And so the office strategy is going to stay for a long time. I think like you could even like Amir, my CTO, loves animations. We don't do any animations today. He loves that feature, but I don't see us doing animations for now in the product. But as you can see, like as we get more and more like PowerPoint or app like,
Yep.
why wouldn't we support something like that interaction? And so
There's something that I'm
so
hoping
that's
for
what we're
for,
heading.
for buttons is the like one of my favorite features that I think it was like the biggest upgrade that I've ever used for PowerPoint was the morph slide transition. Like
Yeah,
having that because I've had times where I have like a cropped image and then if you morph to the next one and you change the crop location, it auto scrolls and moves. It does some really just magical stuff with very little effort. And if they had something like that for buttons or other stuff you mentioned that does more fluid animations, because I've created a toggle switch, like a little a symbol
we
that
had
just
a
moves back and
POC for that.
forth and yeah.
We actually did a POC. So morph is one
Okay.
feature that we all love. Amir loves it as well, especially. And I think we had a POC. We did a hackathon. I think someone did a POC in the hackathon of supporting morph inside Power BI on bookmarks. So as you switch between
Yeah.
states and you move visuals in bookmarks, it then retains it and moves it. Realistically, I would say that we need to go and fix bookmarks before we go and ship a feature like that. But you
Yep.
like animations for me also has impact on accessibility. Like accessibility is a big driver for my team right now, making things accessible for all
Yep.
types of users. And there's a like some tests that you may fail when you have too much animation going on. And so I know it's the end user creating it, so the end user should be aware of what they're doing. But again, I'm just stipulating that animations is not something we're going to work on right now. But I see a future in which once we have a canvas that is working well and serving all needs, that actually giving you the interaction and like the cool PowerPoint factors, uh, like that slide transitions or page transitions is another one that I think will be interesting and cool.
I'm just letting people know, yeah, just because we are getting close to time. If there's any pressing questions left, feel free to drop them in here. I know there's a few little sprinkled questions here and there, and I've tried to answer quite a few. Probably not be able to get to all of them. There's a couple of comments that are people are just mentioning and I'll actually piggyback off this a little bit, but the ability to switch easily between counts would be really nice. Like in the upper right, doing a tenant switch. I know that's not
Yeah.
a probably more of a niche case because I would imagine the majority of developers are probably for a single org. Consultants like me, when you have like 25 clients and 25 tenants,
Yeah.
but I think it's more of a matter of like what percent of your audience are you developing for, and is that a nice to have or a want to have?
We should. I think the service will eventually support this, and then when the service does, I think the desktop will support it. So I see this happening in the next couple of years for sure,
Awesome,
at
that'd
some
be
point.
great.
So it is something that we did review, but it was not part of our initial scope for
Mhm.
the feature that we're working on. Like we're always making changes to sign in flows. So that's a really good question.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I always have to try to remember when I notice something as a like, wait, is this actually something that's a unique problem for independent work contractors, or is this something that a like an in-org tenant person would be experiencing? And there's definitely a Venn diagram overlay of some versus separate between those two.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been really great. As I mentioned, any other primary questions, drop them in now. But I've loved this discussion today. It's been great talking to you, and I think also just chatting about and water cooler conversations about everything within the Power BI experience, and especially I've even learned a couple new things about what's coming out. I try to keep up to date on those courses and MVP, but it's a little hard to make sure to to remember everything that's coming out for the software these days, for sure.
That's great. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. And yeah, it's been a great conversation to talk about all the things that I love, Power BI related. And yeah, I'm really excited for where our future's going. Super excited.
Yep.
And pumped to see you guys use this new stuff that we ship.
And I will say that the keeping it very very abstract, but the as an MVP at least, the number of calls that we've had in probably the last 3 to 6 months and feedback sessions on some of the direction of where the product is going, and you guys make an effort to reach out to us, and it sounds like also the broader community and companies to get feedback on the design changes for building and development. I think has been very helpful, and it seems like you've gotten a lot of insights around like, well, we thought people would want to do it this way, but given all the feedback that we've now gathered, you guys are actually doing it in a very different way than we thought we were. But it helps us to guide the ship on what's going to make it easiest for to reduce the the learning curve and make things as close to Office as possible. So
yep.
So loving it. Yeah, but it sounds like there's nothing else. Just a lot of thanks and appreciation for this great session. Looks like our peak viewership was about 68 people that were logged in
Awesome.
and chatting. So you had a really good turnout today. But yeah, thanks for joining on. Hopefully at some point in the future, I'd love to have you back on as the product continues to grow and evolve. So this has been great. Enjoy the rest of your. I'm having to count the days because I just got back from Greece yesterday, Friday night, my Friday morning. But yeah, have a great weekend, and everyone, we'll see you next week as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships as well. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on social media to help pass on this awesome content and to help the channel grow. So until next time.